So would you ever sell your gold? That's the big question. And personally, sure, but it would just have to be a really good reason. So one of the ideas that comes up a lot here in the comments is that gold is gold. Buy whatever you want because it just doesn't matter. And I don't know that the people who make those comments really think that it doesn't matter or that they actually want to be buried with their gold, but it comes up a lot. Now, I personally care very much about the kind of gold that I buy because I know there are always potential situations where I might need to sell some of it. And then anything that I don't sell, which I do plan on being a significant amount, well, I'm going to give that to my kids. And then they might have situations where they might want to sell some of it as well. Honestly, there's a pretty wide range of options for gold that will be very easy to sell. And then within those options, you should feel free to buy whatever you like, of course. But there are options that are easier to sell than others. And that's where a lot of my recommendations for eagles and buffaloes come from. Now, those recommendations are really just meant for people who are new to gold and don't know where to start, or for people who've never sold gold before, but they might have situations where they might want to sell themselves and they might want to sell it quickly. Now, if you truly will never sell your gold, then I don't know if any recommendations at all apply to you. If you're buying for gold weight with no intention of ever selling, I don't know if an American gold eagle is any better than a cull gold peso. So a lot of people find these videos because they're relatively new to gold though, and that idea that gold is not a good starter plan. Gold is a very liquid asset, but the ease of selling it changes pretty dramatically based on what you have. And then I also know from personal experience that when you buy random pieces, say like 5-gram bars, and then later decide that what you really want is something else, well, those random purchases tend to get sold or traded at a loss. So if you start out buying grams, you're going to pay a higher premium. And then if you try to sell them to a local coin shop, it's very likely that you won't get what they're worth. So it's going to bite you twice. So one of the things that I like about gold is that it creates an emotional attachment that kind of prevents me from wanting to sell it. So I need a really good reason to ever sell. Now, another thing on that same list is that it feels like a luxury purchase, and I find myself avoiding wasteful purchases so I can buy gold instead. Now for me, those two things are amplified a bit for certain gold purchases. It's probably why I like maples, for instance, when I know that eagles are easier to sell here. I do think that there's a certain benefit to having the gold that you really enjoy, even if it's not the absolute best, easiest to sell option. Now with maples, I've mentioned the 1099B form, and there are a few things like that make the eagle a common sense choice. But regardless of all of that, this idea that you'd buy what you like, well, that goes out the window with the gold is gold strategy. Some of this is just a little bit of overanalyzing now. When you constantly make YouTube videos, you start to do that. But the idea that I might buy gold with the intent of holding it for life with no chance of selling, well, that feels a lot like a tax or a fee. Because if it's simply converting cash into gold, and the gold will never be sold, then it's like we're just buying shiny rocks or some kind of grandfather clock or a collectible. I think gold is a lot more than that, personally. So I've sold gold twice. Both times it lined up with real estate purchases, and I was very happy that I had it in both of those cases. Because as much as I like to think that I'm in control of my income or my investments or even my purchases, there are always points where I seem to stretch just a little bit more than I'm comfortable with. And for me personally, having a liquid asset that's off the books, that I'm not using in my calculations, well, obviously it's helped a couple times when I got stretched maybe a little bit more than I was expecting. Now, so far, I've never had to sell more than half the gold that I had at the time, but I've never thought of it as being just a bunch of shiny rocks that are too sacred to sell. So all the things that I'd worked through when I was buying another asset, I worked through that with gold as well, like cost and potential appreciation, expected liquidity. All of that goes into the thought process every time that I buy gold as well. And I think that's an important point to make now and then, since there are a few indicators that make it seem like gold could be overpriced at the moment. It's one thing to hear a person tell you they're buying gold when they have no intention of ever selling. You should always consider where the advice is coming from. Now, I'm still buying because even though I don't think of it as something I'll be selling for huge profits, I also don't think of it as shiny rocks. I'm certainly not planning to be buried with the stuff when I die. It checks all the boxes for being a good use of my cash. So gold is gold. Well, maybe. At least maybe if you never plan to sell this stuff. And having those grams of gold, especially if there's a reason that makes sense for you personally, well, that's definitely better than no gold, and it may even be the best choice for you. I don't know your circumstances, but in general, I think just about everyone should have some gold, or at least be working toward owning some gold. And I don't think that they should buy it with the intent of never selling it. I don't think that they should buy it to throw it in a hole in their barn or dropping it in a safe with the intent of being buried with this stuff. Now again, you do you. I'm just talking about the general population. The reason I think everybody should have it is simple. It's just another level of financial security. And I don't even need to talk in hyperbole about a crashing dollar or try to scare people about a total economic crash. It just makes good sense. Now, I have a follow-up to this topic coming up soon, so I'm going to call it good for now. If you have thoughts on the matter and you want to get in your take on whether or not you'd ever sell your gold, well, let me know in the comments. And then while you're there, hit the like button if you're interested in the conversation. And thank you again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.